Welcome to this Killick Explains video on how to give your children a financial head start. Now, why don't we talk to our children more about money and money basics? Because after all, along with IT, I'd argue it's one of the key life skills. And I suspect the answer is it's a bit boring, both for them and for us. It's time consuming, and I think we all assume that somebody else will do it. But whilst there is some space in the education syllabus these days for basic financial principles, I suspect a lot of people basically leave too much to chance and too much to the teachers, who themselves may not be fabulously au fait with the world of finance. Now, therefore, I think as parents we should take a bit more control. There are good reasons why our children need to be more on top of money basics than perhaps any previous generation. Property prices are rocketing still and out of reach for many first-time buyers, so saving towards that all-important first property purchase is vital. Life after work is becoming more and more risky in the sense that the state pension may or may not be around by the time our children decide to wind down work, let's say. They may not get a conventional retirement in the traditional sense. Final salary, defined benefit pension schemes are becoming a thing of the past, both at the state level and also at the company level. And of course, borrowing costs have been at a record low level for years, and eventually, should inflation make a comeback, are likely to climb. And that's important for a young person leaving home for the first time, thinking about the cost of university, how that's going to be paid for, getting onto the property ladder, saving for life after work, and just day to day budgeting and hopefully saving for themselves. So what can we do to help? Well, there are lots of things, but I'd say there's three things that stand out for me. One is just to get them some money basics, some education. It's important they understand where money comes from. A lot of kids think there's a kind of magic money tree called the bank of mum and dad that will be an endless provider of finance. The reality is that most people need to maximize their income, minimize their expenditure, and save as hard as they can. So some basic budgeting principles for young people don't go amiss, just down to the level of saying, well, how are you going to maximize your income as a student, for example? Can you do extra work? Is there a way you can boost your income during the summer holidays, for example? Earlier than that, are there tasks around the house you could help with on a paid basis? So getting them used to the idea that work and money are generally equated, and then reducing costs. Yeah, the idea of deferred gratification, not having everything now, having to make simple choices between what am I going to buy today, what am I going to save for tomorrow. So basic budgeting, we can tell them all about that. And then it's also important that they understand saving principles. So the idea of compounding over time, the idea that money can make money, and this is a very powerful effect. And perhaps we can encourage saving by setting up the right secure apps for them at a young age, which will allow them to drip money into a bank account, for example, and also make sure they understand the principle of money making money. You can help them, for example, by saying, well, every pound you save rather than spend from, say, pocket money or an allowance, we will match as parents, if we can afford to, with another pound. And that money is locked away for their long-term benefit. And then the third thing that quite a few parents could think about doing is giving them a bit of a financial leg up to face some of these challenges later. And a junior ISA, for example, into which parents can save up to £9,000 per child per year now, so a pretty generous allowance. Just to give you an illustration of how powerful that could be, this is an account which basically their money which will be theirs goes into. When they turn 18, they will have full access and control over it, but in the meantime, invested in the stock market, it could earn a reasonable return. I won't promise that. Nobody can promise that. But let's say, for example, you were able to earn a 5% pre-tax, post-inflation, pre-charges return, hypothetically, and you would put, let's say, £9,000, the maximum, were you able to afford that, into a junior ISA when a child is age 2, on their behalf, and they were to leave it there for the next 16 years, hopefully longer, but until they turn 18, potentially the real purchasing power of that money could have more than doubled over that period. And that's pretty impressive. That's a decent bit of help towards, I don't know, their first car, if that's the way they're thinking, their first property, those ever steepening university fees, and so on. So there are fairly simple ways that families can help to educate children about money, about what it means to have something like a junior ISA in their name eventually, and think about how they're going to use funds that will one day be theirs, but also, of course, giving them that tax-efficient financial boost, because anything within a junior ISA is sheltered from the two big taxes that otherwise can eat away your investment returns: income tax and capital gains tax. Anyone thinking, is it reasonable to do stocks and shares investing on behalf of a 2-year-old? Well, if they can't take a risk, or someone can't take a risk on their behalf when they're 2, when can they, frankly? So there you have it. For more videos on what's quite a big topic, do try our library at killik.com/learn. And I've also produced a guide that contains some more information about things like junior ISAs and junior SIPPs, and that is the How to Save, Plan and Invest for Your Family guide. Editor@killik.com would be a good place to ping me if you'd like a copy of that.